Hey, welcome back. It is I, DrBossKey, and while we're on this fine Saturday afternoon, while all the kids are playing outside, I'm inside playing with my video game. So I thought I would go over 5 quick tips that I've been just thinking about as I've been doing development and finishing my first game, Interstellar Sentinel, with Shmup Creator. Why don't we hop on over and I'll share that with you. Oh, hey, how about some music? Katoonch. It should be some music. All right. So let's see what we got here. First up, Control plus Shift click. Okie dokie. So basically, the short of this is you know, like you wind up collecting a bunch of things, and sometimes you can click and drag, which is totally good, right? So you can see these guys here. I think yeah. So these are individual guys. And or if you need more accuracy, you don't want to select them all. You can hold Shift and Control, and you can click multiple objects. Looks like, yeah, there should be. Yeah, multiple objects. Oh, yeah, perfect. I got a copy of that guy there. Doesn't matter. But you can Control, Shift click, and select multiple things to move around. So easy peasy. And this is also super useful for our next tip. All right, next tip. Booch. All right, next tip. Trigger lines and Control Shift click. Yeah, okay. So, let me see. Let me flip to another level real quick to give you context. Come on. Okay. So I have in every level a fairly big pile of stuff at this point. So this is partially the ranking system, the in-level rank system. And you can see here, I have these conditionals, right? So I have this thing called Loki's Collected, and it's just an enemy object here, but we're not really talking about that. So what we are talking about, though, is that in order to collect all the Lokis, I have basically one trigger condition here, which is connected entity state is all dead, and then these all feed into this, right? And I have quite a few Lokis all across the level. So you can see here, kind of cool is that I can actually shift click individual input lines to show the connection bits. So I don't need to do all of them. But that also then means if you hold down mouse wheel, you can click and drag. So, but because these connection lines are highlighted, I can just very quickly see amongst all of my visual lines here what they're connected to. So you can see, oh, like Loki. Loki, right? So just a neat way of essentially trying to untangle information, because when you come back to your logic after a period of time, you're trying to fix a bug. Did you connect to the right Loki? Is it there? Et cetera, et cetera. This gives you a way of going through the world and seeing how everything's connected. As you can see, I actually have stuff at the very start of the level. Levels are about 9 minutes or so for me. And I have things at the very end of the level that essentially are connected to that trigger logic. And so it's a long way to go to understand what's connected to those. So a bit advanced, but that's that. All right. So next up, shift and drag to duplicate. Oh yeah. Cool. Easy peasy. So basically, and this is a tip that's known already. So you've got this logic guy, right? I just use Control Shift, by the way, to make sure I connected those last 2 bits, right? So you can also Control Shift drag. Super helpful. So if you're like, oh hey, I want to make a copy of these enemies, cloop, right? Oh, maybe I need to make more copies. So so we'll do like this. And then you're like, oh, maybe I only, maybe I like this formation down here like that. And I want to connect all of these guys like that. And then you hold the Shift key down and boom, I'm making him minis like a beast. All right, easy peasy. All right, let's see here. Name your triggers. Oh yeah, this is a good one. Let me flip on over. Make sure I don't save this. That's a live level. And while I have backups, that's the you create bugs for yourself. So that's also like a mini tip, right? So basically the mini tip is, and here you can see here, right, is that I have in my level manager what I highly recommend anytime you're going to do prototyping of a new character, new level logic, new feature logic. do it in a test level. I have a level here I just call the test lab, and now because we have the ability to copy and paste things between levels, oh, so good, so good. That means you can have a centralized sort of like play box or test box, sandbox that allows you to essentially do all your prototyping dev work, making sure you're not creating bugs in your actual levels. And then once you've kind of verified it, test it, you can then copy that out to each of your levels as needed, right? So what that is for me is I got this bad beast of a boy. So I basically got just about every enemy and any enemy variant that I've ever made across all 9 of my levels inside this test box. Also, I have a bunch of mechs that will never see the light of day in this game because you know, things happen. Anyways, but the point being is that, and I don't do this necessarily for full bosses. I could now at this point, but we just now got the functionality. So anyways, have a test sandbox. So, but what we wanted to talk about is the next tip is name your triggers. So there's kind of 2 tips that I've got going on here. So one, let me see here. So one is this easy one. I mentioned this in the past. So if you take a regular trigger and you set it to enemy's HP is less than 1, greater than 1, and then you connect a text object. This basically gives you like a poor man's version of being able to comment your code, right? Because you know, I have a lot of logic here, and so here I know if I get into the habit of always having these descriptors, and the reason why I connect them this way so they don't actually show up in game is so I can come in here and go, okay, cool, what is this beast of a thing I'm looking at? I don't know. Oh, let me see here. And I'm in the habit now of like, oh, this is where I comment my code, if you will, right? So an extension of that is so here I have essentially a monster trophy spawner bit, right? I have it kind of exploded, just meaning that each of the pieces are broken out. And I think, yeah, so I actually have my little comment coder there, right? And so I have this enemy type, and this is all the logic for essentially I have a proxy and a proxy. These are basically just dummy objects. One is connected to this. And then you go, okay, well, what's this do again? If you look at the trigger box up here in the name, you don't have a lot of characters, but MT is short for me, for monster trophy. CON is condition, and then true. So, and then I can look at the trigger itself, and the condition here is that all enemies that are connected to this trigger have died. So the way this functionality works for me is that if the player screen kills a bunch of enemies throughout the level, and they come to this point where we evaluate this in the level, if that is true, then these are all dead, this trigger will fire, and then a number of things happen, right? And so after those things happen, I have another condition here, and the name is monster trophy spawn enemies. Pretty easy, right? This is how I do dynamic difficulty in our game. So I come back here and I take a look at this and I'm like, oh, cool. Anything connected to this then is essentially, once it's true, then I'll spawn all these extra enemies, right? So, of course, you get the same thing. So what I do is when I need to add this logic now to other levels or prototypes, I start by just making a copy, and then I have all of these bits. So that's the short version. You have the ability to name your conditions. So it probably help you in the future, because sometimes if you take a look at like, if you take a look at any of my bosses, the boss logic gets complex, right? And it's great that we can do that, but you're gonna need as many hints as possible to come back and debug, because I'll guarantee you when you're several months down the road, every programmer knows this. When you come back, you only have the power of your comments, your little hints to remind you how things went. And the less information you leave for yourself for notes, the more work it's going to take to work yourself back into the system, to understand all the logic, and then to debug it. All right, here we go. What's up? Boom. Test lab level, I already covered that. Zoomps, all right, that's it. Super sweet and short to the point. I hope I pressed the record button. I did. Thank you everyone that's been out there watching, cheering along, adding comments. Thank you to the Shmup Creator community for being wonderful. Quick shout out to the Shmup Creator devs. You guys have been great. The last version of the engine has been fantastic, especially with all the debugging. We have a lot of power at our fingertips, and we have one of the best in class iteration loops for game development, game design, game tuning for shmup development that I've seen, and I've seen a lot. So thank you very much. We'll talk to you all next time.